Welcome back to the Sip and Swish podcast. Here with Nick Reed, Lucas McLean. I'm Jason Stoltz. Let's get right into the first quarter. This has been an amazing last week of NBA basketball. And the three of us got to enjoy two phenomenal games last night.
Fantastic.
Yep, it was awesome. We got to watch both of them together. And they were the Celtics versus the Thunder and Houston versus the Trailblazers. Both games, absolute swishes, highly contested matchups. All solid teams that are, right in the mix for great playoff seeding. Lucas, what were some of your takeaways from these games?
I think if I was a Thunder fan, I would go berserk every time watching this team play because that first quarter they dominated. The Celtics really, it was just such an overpowering force by just Westbrook. And then the second and third quarters came and they just went on like cruise control. And they just kind of like, okay, the Celtics brought it back to 5, then they brought it to 6, and then all of a sudden, like, it's a tie ball game in the fourth quarter, something like 6 minutes left. And then the Thunder were like, oh, crap, like, we can't cruise anymore. We have to kick it back into gear. Then they got, what was it, like a 7-point lead? And then all the drama that happened in the end. But it was like, I don't understand why in those second and third quarters, why'd you go in cruise control? I don't understand why Paul George just let them back in the game.
Well, it's also as if the coach went on cruise control because there was a stretch where Melo, George, and Westbrook, and like a substantial stretch, weren't on the floor at the same time. And none of us are high on Melo. I'm sure we'll get to that shortly. But nonetheless, if you have those three players, look at how D'Antoni does it in Houston. One of their best players is always on the floor. Chris Paul or James Harden is always out there, if not the two of them. Why are you going to take all three of your like alleged star players out of the game at the same time just to let the other team come storming back?
I mean, looking back at this game, the reason the Thunder lost, they couldn't hit a free throw. They shot 65% from the line. That's 10 missed free. They got almost 30 attempts compared to the Celtics who got 16.
Like, think about
that should have been the difference.
That's a huge difference.
That last minute of the game when they were taking free throws, it kind of felt their body language just looked like they were going to win. Like, what was it? 20 seconds left. They were up by 6 or something. Like, okay, it doesn't matter if we miss this free throw or that free throw. Like, the numbers, the percentages of the way basketball games end, like, we're just going to end up winning. It might be by 1, it might be by 2, but it doesn't matter. We're still going to win. And so it just felt like their body language was, okay, well, Melo missed a free throw. It's okay. It's like, no, you guys need to really like kick it into superstar gear where it's like, we need to make every single shot and like shut people down. But they just gave away so many chances. It was infuriating.
They can't afford to lose games right now, especially not against a very short-handed Boston team that Lucas said was going to lose.
They should have lost this game. There's no reason the Celtics should have won.
But they didn't. And you knew we were going to bring up your terrible hot take from last week. Lucas said they were going to lose 10 of their next 12, and they are, what are they, 2-2?
2-2 right now.
So, rough. But yeah, Melo, what are you doing, Melo? Like, how do you miss 2 free throws?
81% career free throw shooter, Carmelo Anthony.
Westbrook went 1 for 2 at the line right before that as well. Like, we can't let him off either. Your superstars can't go 1 for 3.
1 for 4.
1 for 4 when it's crunch time. Like, that's not.
They only needed one more.
They only needed one.
Did you see how Anthony Davis was celebrating that the Thunder lost? Like, they're all chanting about Marcus Morris hitting that 3 because it helps them out so much.
Sure.
It makes that space to get back up to the 4 seed so much easier for them.
I feel like the Thunder players look at the standings and they're like, oh, we're the 4th seed. Like, we're a lock. We're a game and a half above the next, or 2 games above the next guy. It's like, okay, we're a lock. And it's like, no, you only have 12 games left.
You really think?
I just feel like they're at Wizards' ego right now. I feel like they have John Wall's ego of last year. And I just don't know why they act so lackadaisical on the court. Like, there are at least 4 possessions when watching that game last night where Paul George was the playmaker at the top of the key, and he was supposed to initiate a pick and roll with Steve Adams, and he wasted about 12 seconds just dribbling and standing there and not doing the play, not even attempting the pick and roll, and then doing the pick and roll with 8 seconds left and then bouncing off someone's foot and going out of bounds. And I'm like, you're playing way too lackadaisical, and you're not the primary playmaker on this team.
It still feels like, which is insane at this point in the season, it still feels like they don't always know how to play together. Like this team, this team doesn't know what the best version of itself is.
There's 73 games in, and I couldn't tell you who the second best player is.
It's like the struggles the initial like dynasty Miami Heat team had 2012, where it was like, okay, it's your turn to play with the ball. Now it's Bosch's turn. Now they're still doing this like, okay, Melo needs 6 ISOs a game. Is it great? No. Should he be having really any ISOs unless they're like post ups on like poor switches? No. So
feed Steven Adams, man.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's really the only efficient option.
Let him be your second or third best player. Just let it happen. So we've focused on that, and also good job to the Celtics.
Yeah.
Great work, Brad Stevens, who
Jason
continues
Tatum.
to be Jason Tatum. Absolutely.
Marcus Morris with that pump fake. Oh, baby.
Swishin'.
That was really nice.
Let's talk a little bit about the Houston versus Trailblazers game, which also pretty much came down right till the end.
Yeah, I didn't give up when I think the Rockets were up by 6 at one point, and I was like, Dame could hit 2 threes in a row. And
But it wasn't his night, was it?
he was playing rough, but I think the Rockets were just playing kind of good defense on him. I think it shows to the fact that they have PJ Tucker and they have Trevor Ariza who can play better defense, and they're filling the holes that they had last year, where the Rockets weren't great on defense this year. They're doing much better.
And you know what? I saw a couple times when CP3 was matched up against various players. He kind of shut him down. They almost weren't even looking for the ball, looking for their shot as much. Like, he had a pretty good defensive game.
I just feel like Lillard and CJ had such a below average game performances that it kind of felt like those few times in a season where a game is a fluke and a player has a fluke night. I mean, CJ and Lillard combined for 9 for 32 last night. That's an
great.
off. That's just an off night. It feels like I don't care who they're playing. Like, they can both go off on any team. They had a bad night, and their bench was probably like the saving grace of that entire game because they scored 88 points.
Nurkic was the saving grace of that team.
Nurkic was great, and I think Nurkic exposed the biggest issue with the Rockets is you have one post player that's bigger than Capella, has an offensive game. They're going to expose Capella because he's their only big guy in the paint. They don't even have a backup.
And like Nurkic's not great, but on offense, his defense is silly though. Like his defense was fantastic.
His defense was great, but didn't he still give up like 27 points to Nurkic? 27-11, 24.
I mean, yeah. Capella did, yeah.
Yeah, I just think Capella's still super young. He's not polished in any way, but he has a ton of energy on defense, so that's where he's going to make his money in the offseason. But I feel like if the Spurs matched up with the Rockets in the playoffs, LaMarcus Aldridge is going to torch that paint.
Right.
You don't have who's going to guard him, like Ariza on switches. Like, you're not going to have anybody to guard these guys that actually have post skills.
Right.
That was the interesting thing was I saw Chris Paul like playing defense on Aminu and Nurkic sometimes. Like the switches were, I was like, why is this happening? He was never really guarding Damian that much or CJ that once in a while, but
yeah,
it makes me scared. Like he can play good defense, but where is it always? Like it's not always there.
I mean, that's fair. So, I mean, the Blazers were on an amazing win streak, looking, I mean, the best they've looked all year, looking like an absolute legitimate challenge, challenger for the Western Conference. Walking away from this game, I feel even better about that.
I think so too.
Because Dame and CJ McCollum didn't have great games, and it was still highly competitive. There's no narrative, there's no doubt that Damian Lillard is clutch. He just had an off night, you know what I mean? But, like, I would say universally around the league, everyone is like, if I had one player to take that last shot, he's right up there for everyone.
Yeah.
So do you guys, what do you think? Do you agree that even though it was a loss, this game I don't know. It certainly doesn't make me feel any worse about their chances, and maybe makes me feel better.
I think for me, it's better because I just think their bench got such a big boost in like morale. It was like, okay, we can hold with the best of the best right now, even when our two best players are playing terrible. We only lost by 4, but if they played even slightly better, we're winning by 10. I just feel like even if Lillard had a minute like subpar game instead of this terrible game he had, or CJ the same, just a little bit below average, they would have beat the Rockets by 10.
I mean, the thing I look at is Lillard and McCollum didn't hit a single 3 last night.
Yeah, I think Lillard went 0 for 7.
Wow, I did not realize
0 for
that.
7. McCollum went 0 for 5. But then you look at the Rockets; they shot 53% from 3, and Chris Paul. Not every single game is he going to go 5 for 10 from 3.
No,
it's not going to happen.
So yeah, basically that just further solidifies, kind of what I said, which is just that like, wow, things went really right for Houston. Things kind of went really wrong for the Trailblazers, and it was still a close game.
In a 7-game series, you're going to see the Trailblazers close out more on those 3-point shots. They're going to, the shots aren't always going to fall for Houston.
Moving on. We're going to sip or swish this next topic. Sip or swish the veracity of Warriors injuries. My personal take, and I know we kind of talked about this at the PPM, the pre-pod meeting, I don't buy some, if not most, of these injuries. I kind of don't think that they're really injured. Or that if they are, if it was like playoff time right now, they'd be out there playing through them. I just 100%. don't think that these injuries are real, some of them at least. And I think it's Steve Kerr being very creative, and he's resting his players. And this is the new way you rest your stars in this NBA. You don't say they're sitting for rest because you could get in trouble. You say you have a cartilage fracture. 2 words that I've never heard back to back. That's my take. Nick, hit me with your thoughts.
So I went through and I looked at every single injury because it's Curry, Green, Durant, and Clay. The top 4 players all hurt. Now, Green got hurt in the Spurs game 12 minutes in. I'm a midsection contusion.
Yeah, a pelvic contusion. That's just a bruise.
It's a bruise. Yeah, it's a glorified bruise. Is it, hey, we're not really going to beat this Spurs team. We're not doing well. You're not going to play the rest of the game. We need a reason.
I think Draymond's a rest.
Draymond's a rest. Curry will be back Friday against the Hawks, which, I mean, this is his 3rd ankle injury this year. 4th this year.
4th. It's his sprained ankle.
17th documented ankle injury in his career.
Yep.
That's
all in the same ankle. Which
all the right ankle.
These are all red flags in my head. I just feel like you can sporadically rest Steph Curry, and they did do that. Like they rest him against the Magic in November. Randomly you'll rest Curry, but they rested Curry for like 12 straight games in a row, and then they rest him again for another 6 games. He's missed 21 games this season, all for the same injury in the same ankle. This is like a really big red flag, and it's not even like the last 5 games of the season. Like if it was the last 5 games and he has like an ankle injury, it's okay, they're resting him. But this is like not the very, very end. He still comes back and then they rest him again. Like what was the purpose of the prior? Like I don't get it.
I guess maybe they're just doing like
they lost the Trailblazers twice in this span.
So Nick, circling back, sip or swish in your opinion that the injuries are legitimate?
I want to say they are. I really do. I think Clay's.
So swish on legitimate injuries.
Well, Clay has a broken right thumb.
Fractured thumb now.
His is the only one that I think is actually
I think his is the
real.
truth.
Kerr said he'll be out for at least a couple of weeks. Durant's incomplete rib cartilage fracture. He'll be out for the next 7 games.
Durant's going to miss 2 weeks as of March 16th. Clay is getting reevaluated tomorrow.
Clay is going to get reevaluated.
I think Green and Durant's injuries are rest.
That's pretty. Yeah, that is pretty much where I come down. I think the Curry one, he probably does have an ankle that he would play through if it was meaningful.
If it was a Game 7, he would be out there.
But it's there.
Why would you rest Durant now and not the final 2 weeks of the season? That's my real question. Like, why bring him back even for 1 game and then rest him again? Like, what's the purpose of that? But then I tried to like search what an incomplete rib cartilage fracture was, and I guess it's like a thing. It's like a real injury that happens, but they don't call it they don't call it like a fracture. They call it like a tear. But,
right, because how can you fracture cartilage?
But
the whole thing is like when he breathes, he gets extreme pain because it's anytime his rib cage moves, all the cartilage in there is damaged. So like he's a normal NBA player for a tear, not a fracture, is out for 6 weeks. And so they're giving him 2 weeks. But I think that like even if it's like a minor injury, if like Durant is having trouble like breathing and he's having like real pain, I feel like that even if it's a small problem, it's still a problem.
Thanks, WebMD.
I didn't even go on WebMD. But I don't know. I think 3 of them. I think Clay, Durant to a smaller degree, but I think Curry and Clay are real. I think you have to really worry about Clay.
So it sounds like
You have a broken right thumb
it sounds
or
like
shooting hand.
to varying degrees, we all don't buy that all of these injuries are real.
No. But if I had to go like in a row, I'd say like Clay 1,
Yeah.
definitely worry. Curry 2 because that's
his ankle.
His ankle for his entire career is busted.
Then KD.
And then KD, then Draymond. I think Draymond is just complete rest.
He's just Draymond, and maybe Kerr just didn't want him to get any technical fouls.
He probably got winded too. Like if you got weed in the stomach or something, you're just going to get winded.
We only have 3 weeks left until it's the end of the season.
Yeah.
So this is the perfect time to rest.
Well, why wouldn't you rest him at the very end? Why even?
I don't know if you want them coming back like literally for playoff game number 1. I mean, I know they're a great team and they've been together and blah, 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 but still, I think there's something to be said for
Do you
continuity.
think there's any strategy behind the Warriors? Like, do they think they're trying to favor themselves in a matchup? Like, do they think... Are they looking at the schedules and thinking like, oh, the Nuggets might make it to like the 7th seed? Or they're looking at...
I think that
we don't
they
want
were
to play the Jazz.
I think that they were realistic and knew
They're not getting the 1
they
seed.
weren't getting the 1 seed.
Yeah, so like,
So they were happy basically just, and they're not going to slide to the 3 seed either.
Not a chance.
I feel like if they wanted to fight for that 1st seed, they could have obviously. But
But they're
could've tried.
they're 4 games back now. It's way too hard.
well, now after all these injuries,
Ty Lue. Health is sipping, and we're sipping for you, man. No one's glad to read and hear what's been coming out. It sounds legitimate and scary. My initial reaction, like literally just when I saw breaking news at the bottom of the TV screen, was like, oh, LeBron is pushing him out. And then to be totally transparent, very quickly, like listening to and reading stories by very well-respected sources, it's like, okay, that's not the deal. This guy's been sick all year. He's really struggling. So Ty Lue is sipping health-wise. Kevin Love swishing and playing well, and he's back on the court. Nick, let's start with you. Where do you think the Ty Lue and Kevin Love, kind of out and in with the Cavs, where does that put the Cavs right now? Does it change things? Where are we?
The Cavs with Kevin Love, he did play pretty well. I think was it last night or 2 nights ago?
2 nights ago.
2 nights ago he played. They looked much better, and it gives LeBron the second option, like the number 2 player on his team back. I would give it. It's good that he's back. It's giving them probably the second chance that they can maybe get out.
I think the world is overhyping this Kevin Love return right now because right now in the games tonight, Cavs-Raptors, Cavs are favored by 2 points against the Raptors tonight.
In Cleveland, it's got to be in Cleveland.
It is, but how is that a thing? Even with Kevin Love back, like I don't know if Kevin Love's going to make a big enough impact to be a.
I
to
mean,
make
if
the
you're
Cavs a favorite now.
getting Kevin Love back averaging 20 and 10,
What did he get his first game? Wasn't it like 12 and 5?
yeah, I mean that's first game back, and he wasn't. I don't think he really played as much as he should have.
I think actually a bigger thing might be having Larry Drew as their head coach now. Because now with Ty Lue's going to be out at least a week. He was like spitting up blood.
it'll be more than a week.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
they said like whatever. They said the minimum, but it's probably going to be out for a while. But if Larry Drew is like their coach, I mean, like there's always Coach LeBron, but Larry Drew's last stint of head coach was he was the coach for the Bucks, and they went 15-67. So
So downgrade.
It's a huge downgrade from Ty Lue, which already is a terrible situation to be in if Ty Lue is your head coach. But like, they're like, I don't know what's holding this team together right now.
Let me interject real quick for the sake of accuracy. Kevin Love had a better game than you guys just portrayed. He was 18 points, 7 boards, 4 assists.
That's not bad.
That's a pretty solid game.
I still wouldn't favor them over the Raptors, though.
Hard to say. I mean, everyone gets caught up in the Cleveland thing, right? I mean, when all the trades happened, it was like, oh, Cleveland's back, baby. Front runners. I mean, it's just, they have LeBron James, and when anything gets tweaked, people get hyped. They're like, well, now LeBron has X, or now LeBron has X, Y, and Z. Can you imagine? Fine.
It's always the hype. To start the second quarter, I have my hot takes. I only have 4 of them this week. Thought I'd go easy on you guys so you guys' brains didn't explode with so much knowledge being shot at you guys. It's insane.
Knowledge, I wouldn't call it that.
So, my first take is that Corey Brewer fixed the Thunder. I feel like that's a hyperbole, but I was going to say
That was great.
All right.
A hyperbola? What's a hyperbola? Is that something like in mathematics?
Ebola?
Yes, Ebola. So
I don't know. I'm going to call
he fixed the Ebola on the Thunder. But they're 6-1 when Corey Brewer starts. And the biggest thing is they didn't have a wing that could play great D and slash as being the sole job. And they haven't had that since Andre Robertson went down. I think that was probably the biggest thing they're missing is some guy that can just all of their energy is on defense or crashing the boards or just endlessly cutting, not always saying ISO ball time. They needed some team players. And 6-1, I think, is a good indication of Corey Brewer helping the team.
I'd like to jump in first, being the resident Thunder fan. I really like the addition of Corey Brewer, but no, there's only one thing that can fix the Thunder, and that's better coaching.
Oh,
and it's the same issue they've had dating back to Scott Brooks. And I'm not like a Scott Brooks hater, except that I kind of am because he couldn't do anything with Westbrook and Ibaka and Durant and Harden. Like, I mean, I know they were young, but a good coach would have won at least one chip. I'm sorry. So their coaching problems date back. And we don't need to rehash some of the decisions last night because we kind of just talked about it. But last night exemplified poor coaching. And yes, Corey Brewer helps the Thunder, but only better coaching can fix the Thunder.
He had a few moments last night in that game where he was picking off, like, he was cutting passing lines, and he had, like,
he had some nice steals
last night. He plays good D. He does his role to the extent of what the Thunder need, and I don't know. I think he's a great addition. He's fixed a lot of the problems.
We're looking at you, crazy eyes. We're watching.
He is a great addition. He didn't fix them because they are streaky. And in that run, they played the Suns, the Kings, the Hawks, the Spurs team that no one really knows what they are. They're just kind of there.
I have no idea what the Spurs are.
And the Clippers are somehow okay. They're like
Clippers have been playing well, I guess, but they're not.
They're not winning right now, at least.
Yeah, and then they beat that Raptors team with the questionable everyone getting ejected in the last minute.
Last like 8 seconds.
The last minute was very questionable in calls and whatnot. But no, he didn't fix it. They're a streaky team where they go on these insane runs. They're like, oh my God, this is the 3rd best team in the West. And then all of a sudden they're like the 20th defensive rating team. He's a good player. I like Corey Brewer. He brings a lot of that hype.
Do you think he fixed any problems on the team?
Yeah, he fixed that shooting guard. Someone needs to play defense, and it's definitely not going to be.
I don't know if you can completely fix a team, that team, going back to your point of being like poorly coached, because I feel like the common denominator is whatever offense you play has to be Westbrook. So I feel like a team isn't ever going to run any other system than Westbrook getting the ball and just going. So like I don't know if you fix that, because otherwise the way to fix that system is to not have Westbrook.
So are you basically saying that it's less of a coaching failure and more that the coaches are handcuffed by Westbrook?
I think that's probably fair because I don't think any other team runs an offense like the Thunder of just one guy go.
I think the Thunder almost needed to take a kind of Miami approach, and they could have gone Paul George, and then they just needed to get a ton of shooters. They just needed to get guys out here on the wings.
They could have even not got Paul George and just got a bunch of shooters, and I would have loved to see that.
Yeah, Westbrook with a bunch of
With a ton of
3-and-D
role
guys. Yeah.
That would have been fun to watch. Some slashers. So my second take is I think this Warriors dynasty is finally coming to an end. And it's felt like a short span of my life. But this is the 4th year of this Warriors dynasty. It's just the test of time with every NBA dynasty ever. The Lakers in the early 80s, 80 to 82. Then they did it again in 85 to 88.
But see, that's one dynasty. That's one overall dynasty. Whether or
I don't
not
think
players
so.
changed a little bit, I don't think.
If the whole 80s wasn't just like one, though. Like they had that hard middle tier where they had tons of injuries. They had some turmoil. They had to flip some players over. But
there
that
were only
early
2 or
80s
3
were great.
years in between when they won multiple championships.
I still think that like you have like a lifespan of a dynasty of around 3 years.
Oh, see,
I wouldn't.
I disagree with that take.
You have
We just disagree there?
the Heat. You have the Heat of 2011 to 2013. Then they died. Celtics from 81 to 84. I'm not going to count the Bill Russell one because there's only 8 teams in that league. But then you have the Pistons 88 to 90. You had the Bulls from 90 to 93. Then Jordan left because really all the rumors are they were actually tired of playing 4 seasons and actually 3 seasons. So it was like
Right, because of the extra games in the playoffs. and
yeah, I
finals,
mean, it all adds up. And so, like, Jordan's retirement, then Houston went on a 2-year run where Elijah one is incredible.
Don't you dare call that a dynasty, too.
I didn't call them a dynasty, but they went on a run. They went on a run. And
Your
then,
definition of a dynasty.
and then
I
the
think, is what
Bulls went on another three-peat. I think it's just like there's only the lifespan of greatness in the NBA, and it always is like 3 to 4 years. I mean, they could go on next year and have a great season, but it's dwindling, and it has to because injuries will add up, playing time will add up. Curry has played 344 games in the past 3 years. Clay has played 363. Draymond has played 359. These add up.
And he would have played more if not being suspended for 20.
Right. It's just
Don't fact check that number.
Eventually, life just hits you, and we're going to feel like, oh, they can go for another 3 years, sure. And then all of a sudden, they drop off a cliff, and we're going to be like, oh, like, what happened to them? I was like, well, the NBA happened. It's just how life works.
Do you want to start next?
I had so much prepared, but then this whole dynasty thing is just throwing me off my game.
I know. I don't want to talk about anything else other than Lucas's definition of what a dynasty is.
It's like every 3 to 4 years. It's your dynasty.
So what is the Spurs then? That's
Sure.
the
Thank
Tim
you.
Duncan era. That's a dynasty. LeBron himself going to the finals is his
It's a
own
LeBron dynasty. But two or 3 years of being competitive for a championship or winning a championship 2 out of 3 years, that's not a dynasty to me.
Well, these teams didn't just like. I guess I don't understand. How do you not see a dynasty as being like a 3 to 4 year span? But like those Spurs teams, sure, they won 50 games, and they made it to the second round in conference finals, but they didn't win it all the time. You know, they weren't like the best team in the league forever. The dynasty is the best. Like the early 2000 Lakers were a dynasty because they won. They killed it. Shaq, Kobe
Well, they
won.
three-peated.
Yeah, they three-peated.
Right,
Those are
okay.
the best dynasties.
That's a little different, though. They three-peated.
Well, the Warriors have been in the finals for 4 straight years. Like, they're a dynasty. That's a dynasty.
Yeah,
They're close. They're very, very close. If they get back to the finals this year and if they win, I will call it a dynasty.
I feel like they're already. I mean, they got a 2-time MVP. They've been there. They've done that. Now they're about to fall off.
So now
that's just the cycle.
I'll bring it back to the Warriors. They have Curry on the cap till 2022 on that super max, $40 million a year.
I'm just still angry at Lucas.
I know. I'm bringing. They still have Green. They still have Iggy. They still have Livingston till 2020. Clay is next year. His contract needs to come up, and Durant has a player option. I think in some fashion, Curry, Durant, and Green will be on this team for the next till 2020, 2021. I think Clay is the piece that could, if they don't make it deep this year, I think they will move Clay in the offseason just so that they can get some players around these 3 guys that they want to build around for sure for a championship to continue building a dynasty.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where I come down necessarily, again, because I don't believe it's already a dynasty. I think that the road is getting tougher for them, and I don't see that stopping. Houston is legit. Houston is very legit. The Trailblazers might be. Anthony Davis is really coming into his own, and honestly, by next year, could be the best player in the entire league. I'm not saying he will, but he could be. The West is stacked, kind of like it always is, and it feels like there's less separation between the Warriors and the rest of the pack. And keeping the core nucleus together moving forward is going to be an issue. I'm not saying they won't be able to. Is it coming to an end? Yeah, probably. I think I agree. Is it currently a dynasty? No.
I think you're all wrong. But we'll go on to the next take. I think the Western
The Lucas list is my favorite thing. It's honestly, I take more joy in the second quarter than anything else. And you do a great job, Lucas.
Thank you so much. I think the Western Conference standings are basically decided. I just don't see the Nuggets and Clips coming out, especially the Clips.
Standings or the 8 teams?
Well, I think the 8 teams are in there. I don't
1
think
through 8
they're. I don't think they're like standings are locked. I think like 6 through 8 will probably fluctuate.
Yeah.
But those are going to be the teams in the playoffs. I just don't see the Nuggets, even if they pulled some miracle and Jamal Murray had like average 35 for the next, and they made the playoffs. They're just going to get bumped. I just don't see them having enough star power.
When you told me this list last night, I was so ready to disagree with you, and then I did the research, and I'm 100% agreeing with you.
They're not even that good with Paul Millsap.
But the thing is, the Nuggets have a really hard schedule, and the Timberwolves have a pretty easy end of the year, where they have to play the Knicks, the Grizzlies, the Hawks, the Mavs. So that's 4 games right there that they should win those. I mean, they play the Nuggets twice, so if they win one of those games, like, the Nuggets are just toast.
Right. When Lucas previewed us this list yesterday, you and I definitely both kind of rolled our eyes a little bit and immediately both went to, well, the T-Wolves aren't that solid without Butler. You know, how can you say it? But I absolutely agree with both of you at this point. Lucas, good hot take.
My next hot take is the Celtics have been overrated all season. This was more of a shot at my buddy Chuck because he is a diehard Celtics fan, and I need to just jab at him one more time in his bleeding Celtics heart. They started off the season 16-2, and since then they've gone 31-21, which is respectable, but that's still that's the same winning percentage as the Wizards and the 76ers and the Pacers of last week. But that's kind of the quality of team I see them as just being like a mid-tier like Eastern Conference team. But if you take out that 16-game winning streak, they don't really seem that impressive.
This is a silly, silly statement that they're overrated. They were overperforming the fact that they were missing their best player. They don't have Gordon Hayward, who is their max player, who is supposed to bring it all together. Yes, they went on a 16-game winning streak. That's impressive. Their defense is the number 1 defense in the league still.
Isn't their regular season performance is going to be so overrated when it gets to the playoffs and gets bumped?
I'm not saying they're a playoff great team because
isn't that the whole regular season matters when it comes to the playoffs?
They have injuries right now, and this is the point where
Lucas himself has been probably the biggest proponent of the issues. Or just he's brought that to the forefront of this podcast, the issues that they're having because of injuries.
This shows that Brad Stevens is such a good coach that he can take a team that has had injuries.
Praise be his name.
Praise be. Where they go and beat the Thunder last night. Yes, the Thunder should have won, but they didn't. And the Celtics beat them without Kyrie Irving, and their best player was Jason Tatum, who's a rookie.
Without Marcus Smart.
And Marcus Smart.
Who's legit.
They've also lost to some bad teams, though.
They have, but I mean, everybody does that. Everyone goes through those stints where they lose to the
Well, of course, when you're like a
Phoenix
mid-conference team, of course you would. If that's what your quality is, of course you're going to lose and win to these teams because you fluctuate so hard. But they're not elite, as everyone is saying.
Not yet.
You're the second seed in the East. Everyone's touting everything as fantastic, but it's just like last year. It's kind of just a giant, massive facade when playoffs came. And they really struggled because they weren't as good as they were. And Brad Stevens all of last year was saying we're overperforming where we are because we're not that good. And that's just like this year. They're not that good. But they're just barely clawing their ways out of these games.
So
and then the playoffs come and they're going to struggle, and it's just going to be like, what was the point of being the second seed?
If
Like,
they
we're just fucked anyway.
if they had their full roster, leave Hayward out just because he hasn't been on the team since day one of this year. If they had the rest of their full roster, would you still be making this hot take? Because they might have the rest of their full roster come playoff
Talking
time.
like Marcus Smart, Kyrie's hurt.
Marcus Smart will be out.
He's not going to come back.
Kyrie's getting a second opinion on his knee.
His knee is getting his screws.
Like they're losing to bad teams without all their team.
Yeah, I disagree. They have not been overrated all season. I disagree.
I don't know. I just don't think. I mean, I just feel like, what's the point of doing so well in the regular season if you're just going to get bumped in the playoffs?
But who could have foreseen Kyrie's knee injury or Marcus Smart?
I'm just confused of I'm just confused of the fact, like, why would they just be bad? Like, were you saying they should tank because they don't have Gordon Hayward? Or why wouldn't she be the second seed? Why would she show everyone like?
I think because they're labeled in a tier above what they are.
I think
they're not supposed to be in this like top 4 tier team when they're supposed to be in like the 3rd tier.
I think they're the Rockets, Warriors, the Raptors, and then the Celtics. I
don't think they're. I would say like. I just don't know. I don't think they're like even 3rd tier. I would put them in a tier with the Wizards or even Pacers. I mean,
if Kyrie's on the court, I disagree with that.
But when Kyrie's off the court, like they just scored 100 points at the very last second, but they haven't scored 100 points in like almost 2 weeks now. Like except that double overtime game that they had. After that, they've been scoring in like the mid 90s. Like they're just not scoring without Kyrie.
They haven't been a good offensive team all year. They're 17th in the league.
So then naturally when your number 1 offensive player goes down.
I just feel like
But their defense is still there. They're still playing defense.
Their defense is about to drop off too because they're not getting Smart back. Like everything's about to like collapse on this team.
Lucas is just so anti-Celtics.
I just
listeners, go back to last week's Lucas list. See the idiocy of his Celtics hot take last week. And then, in a few weeks, review this one, and you'll see it too.
How many games back are the Cavs? Like 5?
They're not catching them. Come on.
5.5?
Baby.
They're not going to get there. They have to. The Celtics would have to just lose every single game with the Cavs winning every single one. Not happening. Celtics are number 2 seed.
Welcome to the 3rd quarter. We have an interview today with the Chief Marketing Officer of PlayDayDream. Hey, Brad, how's it going?
Great. How's it going, guys?
Doing real well, thanks. So tell us a little bit about Daydream and about, I guess, what makes it unique and different from most, if not all, other fantasy sports platforms.
So we don't even like to think of it as a fantasy, even though we're calling it Daydream. I guess it's a day fantasy, not a night fantasy or whatever your fantasies are. Actually, my fantasies are usually way better than sports. No offense, but in this case, but hopefully everyone else's are too. But in this case, Daydream is meant to be simply more fun. It keeps you in the game more because it's not player-based. It's actually team-based. So when you're getting you go and pick teams as opposed to players. And the reason we did that is because players can get injured or players can move to different teams. And also, in the beginning of a lot of fantasy sports, if you have your top marquee player hurt, then you can be done for the whole season. And what the Daydream platform does is it keeps you in the game for most of the season, and you won't get eliminated until really the very end. So it makes it much more exciting and much more fun.
Right. I did a fantasy basketball this year, and I think 3 of my top players got hurt in a 4-week span, and I ended up just deleting the app and not looking at it for the rest of the season because I was so frustrated that I slid to 8th in the 12-player conference that we had.
Right. We're trying to make it also more social. There'll be eventually a chat format, so when you're playing with your friends, you can, I don't want to say trash talk, but for lack of a better word, you can trash talk or just simply engage. So I think it's, again, in a way, it's almost more of a social media platform in a loose term, and with what's going on with Facebook and stuff like that, it'll be a very secure social platform.
Right.
So,
Well, I'm playing it right now, and I'm in 70th place out of 113
well, to make you
people.
feel better, I think I'm in 113th.
I think the only teams left I have is Syracuse and Kentucky. But I love the way this whole thing was set up. Like the whole design and the whole way the website works is completely unique to any other sports betting site. Basically, I guess it's not sports betting, but
Right.
you're picking. I guess it's some form of gambling without money, but.
So essentially, like the fourth quarter, we shouldn't pick with you.
No, right. You definitely shouldn't pick any. I should never do March Madness again.
So, and Lucas, you're referencing, the March Madness tournament, which you guys, this is kind of almost, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is kind of your test run almost of the platform.
Yeah, no, this is our beta version of it. So we're going to be making a lot of improvements. But even in a beta version, we had 113 players sign up, and even my wife was playing. My wife hates sports, but what's cool is now because of this platform, she has actually, well, it's good and it's bad, right? She has actually now developed an interest in college basketball. What's bad is we now actually have to watch college basketball together.
That's great.
So, but then if I ever go take her, now at least instead of going to a Broadway play, I have a decent shot of going to a college basketball game with her. So that's kind of a win-win, right?
Absolutely. So getting back to Daydream for a second, it's multiple sports. You're going to launch in full for this upcoming football season, and then kind of keep rolling out, other sports on your platform. What all is going to be included? What kind of games can we look forward to?
So, as strange as it may sound, a golf version of
I'm
the
excited
game,
for that
and
one.
the golf one, of course, with golf it's not team based; it will be player based, but it's going to be designed much more like the college tournament, kind of a bracket situation. Same for tennis. Eventually, soccer, baseball is in the works, and NASCAR, and all the major sports, football, basketball, baseball, and then at some point hockey too.
Nice. I'm stoked to hear that golf's going to be included. That's our other favorite pastime, like watching NBA basketball, drinking beers, doing the podcast, and playing golf are definitely like the three things that Lucas, Nick, and I enjoy the most.
That's awesome. And I mean, again, that's one of the great benefits of this whole platform that we've developed is that it will get people that are playing our games more interested in watching the sports. So, again, you can do this at your favorite restaurant or bar or wherever, sports are being played, or we eventually see people having parties around the platform and really making it more of a social thing and not just an online thing.
I love it. I think it's a great concept, man. So,
Well, thank you.
So naturally, you're also a sports fan. I believe you're a fan of the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say that. I am. We actually, I grew up in Dallas. So when the Mavericks were a team that just started out in the NBA, they were one of the expansion teams. It was before you guys were born. And they were actually practically giving away season tickets. So we had season tickets to the Dallas Mavericks when they were a team that barely won a game. But actually, I don't know if you may not know the history, but within like a couple of years, they rose all the way to the top and made it almost to the championship. They made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals. And
was that under Don Nelson or before that?
That was under Nelson. Yeah. Wow. You guys are good. And then
I'm older than these two. I'm 31.
Yeah, but I still could have fathered you.
Dad? Is that you?
But it wouldn't have been great. I would have only been in my 20s, and so fathering you doesn't seem. Hindsight, it's not like that's such a great idea. But so we had season tickets, and that's when I really got into the team. And then years later, I was at a Knicks game and got to meet Mark Cuban on the floor.
No way.
And we've just stayed. I actually made, even though my kids grew up in New York, I made them into Maverick fans, and they're they're really not happy with me with the last couple of seasons. But you know how basketball is; it's cyclical, right? The team will probably be good unless you're the New York Nets. But then, the New Jersey Nets, but Brooklyn Nets. But eventually the Mavericks will be good again. They have great ownership and great management. Isn't their management in a little bit of trouble? Maybe it's not so great.
Yeah,
there's a lot of controversy with that lately.
It's not the best time for them, but no. Overall, I think your point is accurate. Like, Mark Cuban is a good owner. They've got a solid coach, and I think we'll see them be above 500 within the next 2 seasons.
Yeah. I think it's a good time for
in the West, above 500, as we see this year, doesn't mean that much, right?
No, not at all.
The 3 through 11 seeds are so close that any game could pop them to the 4th seed, 5th seed.
Right.
So what was
Did you guys watch? Did you watch the Rockets and Portland play last night?
Oh yeah,
we did. Actually, the 3 of us got to catch that game together, which was pretty fun.
Yeah, can you believe? The Rockets just look unstoppable, right?
I would say my biggest takeaway was that. Yes, the Rockets are amazing. But my biggest takeaway was Dame Lillard didn't play a great game, and Portland still played pretty tough. So that makes me feel like if they do see each other in the playoffs, it's at least going to be a real series. Because if Damian Lillard cannot play well and the team can still be competitive, then what happens when Dame plays well? I think they could win a few games in a series.
Yeah.
I'll agree with you because I don't know enough to disagree.
What's your favorite Mavs team or favorite Mavs era? From having been a fan for so long.
So it was the Rolando Blackman, Derek Harper, Mark Aguirre. I think it was just because I was a kid, and that was when we had the season tickets, and it was just great. That was we had Jordan playing then, and Johnson, and the whole NBA just felt. Larry Bird was still. It was just a great time to be an NBA fan.
Didn't they trade Maguire to the Pistons though?
I think the Mavericks got Maguire from the Pistons.
From the Pistons? Okay, it wasn't the other way around.
Or maybe it was the other way around. I think it was more like at some point towards the end of his career, he may have left and gone to the Pistons. You're probably right.
I think my favorite Mavs team was probably about a decade later when they had Jermichael Finley and Dirk and young Steve Nash. And that was such a fun team to watch and a really fun team to play, like NBA. Well, it was before NBA 2K, but whatever the hot NBA video game of the time was. That was just such a fun run that they had.
Yeah, that was great too. Yeah, there's been a few really nice moments.
And those hairstyles that Steve Nash and Derek had together.
It's funny you guys say 2K. My kids know every player from 2K, and when they see a player, they actually give me his ranking.
Really?
So they're like, oh, that player's trash. He's only a 78. And I'm like, but you understand in real life. But what's weird is what's strange about that is that they'll see a player in street clothes and they'll know exactly who that player is from 2K. So their whole, and actually they claim that they play better in basketball from 2K because they know the game that much.
It is something interesting because Lucas and I both used to play a ton, and we would know the 5 bench players on every single NBA team just from playing every single day. I knew every single player in the league, like you just said.
It's a pretty good knowledge source, honestly, getting every sort of information everywhere. Like, their hot trends, where they can shoot on the court. You learn a lot from just playing 2K, which is really surprising.
Right, and then they'll build their own teams from the older players, right? So they'll pick players from back when I was talking about, and they'll put a team and put them with LeBron and make their whole team. And so their knowledge of basketball, we went to the Hall of Fame, and even my 11-year-old, he knows so much about the game from 2K.
That's amazing. Maybe video games aren't a total waste of time.
I hope
dare I say it?
They'll tell you that they're not, and I'll tell you that they're probably wrong. But no, I mean, it's something that honestly, I think it's pretty cool. I think that they've gotten a lot of knowledge, and also it shows on the court. Like when when my 11-year-old dunks the ball. And then, does that. I'm only kidding. He doesn't dunk the ball.
I was going to say, how tall is he?
Yeah, Lucas, we need to fact check that.
Yeah, still under 5 feet, I'm pretty sure.
Well, thank you for coming on, Brad. It was a great conversation.
I felt like we hit
we had a
that
great
moment
time.
where this was going to end.
What do you mean? You noticed that awkward silence?
Yeah, there was sort of that uncomfortable silence with ending on the 5'11" and but I think I listen. Thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for letting me tell you guys a little bit about Daydream. Hopefully, you can have me on again when we get to our the football game. It's called Scramble. And that, like I said, they'll roll out this year. So
yeah, we'll definitely have you back, and we'll definitely be checking out Daydream more and more as it launches. All right, welcome to the fourth quarter, everybody's favorite time of the podcast. We got some 5 marquee matchups this week. Looking back into the last week, sadly, I tied with Lucas for the lead. 3-2 records. Champion of the world. Yeah, no, I'm the champion of the world 6 weeks in a row, pretty much. Just saying.
Yeah, you are dominating.
Yeah.
With his bold predictions of picking the best team in the league, it's got to be hot.
That was this week.
You picked
prior
them
to
twice.
Yeah, this week, because you guys picked the other team. Jason sadly followed up with 2-3.
I still can't. I can't shake the Lucas curse from 3 to 4 weeks ago. I was on top of the world. I was Kate Winslet in Titanic. It was amazing. And then Lucas happened to me.
You're slumping. It's all right. You'll get back maybe. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
I also don't know how I feel about what I just said. Let's just move on.
Let's move on to game 1. So game 1's Wednesday night. It's the Toronto Raptors versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. So the Raptors are favored 60% in Cleveland. Now I saw a poll on Twitter, like 40,000 people voted on it. And it had the Cavs favored like 46% to get out of the East still. Like, wow. This is before Kevin Love's back. This is the game where I think it makes sense to say, all right, are the Raptors good enough?
It's a statement game.
It's a statement game. If they like pummel the Cavs by 20, then all right. Or LeBron's like, no, this is still my league.
And it's not to say that their accomplishments thus far are meaningless or don't have merit. But this is a statement game. If they beat Cleveland right now after Love is returned, we're 3 weeks out from the playoffs. It would be cool. It would be cool for them.
All right, Jason, start us off. Who are you getting?
I'm taking the Cavs.
Taking the Cavs.
I'm taking the Cavs. I mean, the Raptors are legit 100%. The Cavs are too because they have LeBron James and because Love is back. And I believe in Love.
Lucas?
I'm saying the worst things ever in this quarter. I'm so sorry.
I'm going to pick the Raptors because I don't think their last game against Orlando really meant anything to them because they didn't play DeRozan. They didn't play Van Fleet. I think they were like, okay, we're pissed about this Thunder game. Like, it's the prove yourself game against the Cavs. They need to say, like, we are the number 1 seed. We deserve to be in the conference finals. I'm going to pick the Raptors just because I feel like they have the the emotional energy behind them to win this game.
Going Cleveland. I feel LeBron's been on this hot streak where he just wants to dominate the world.
Did you guys hear Giannis talk about having to like play against LeBron after that game?
No.
Giannis basically was just like, he was unstoppable. There was nothing I could do. He was doing like fadeaway jumpers with like absurd arc that just like you can't defend it. I mean, it was pretty cool to hear Giannis talk about it.
I watched a little bit of that game and I saw just one point. LeBron gets the rebound, coast to coast, just in a blink of an eye and just slam. Like no one could get in his way because they would just drop to the ground.
Does he physically look better than he did like 3 years ago? Yeah. He actually looks kind of younger and just better.
If you saw LeBron and like a photo, you'd think he's like 25.
But he's in like
which is funny because when he was 18, he also looked 25.
He always looks 25. He's in
that Kobe, that like was it the early 30s Kobe, the Vino?
The Vino.
He's in Vino Kobe stage right now, and it's terrifying.
Vino LeBron. All right, we're going to go to the Friday night game. This is going to be the Denver Nuggets versus the Washington Wizards. This is big for Denver.
Love it.
They need to get a win here. They're favored 64% against the Wizards.
It's in Denver.
No, it's in Washington.
And they're favored by that
They're
much?
favored. I just don't trust the BPI ever.
Wow. BPI.
When is Wall coming back?
I don't think.
He's not going to be back for this game.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Not one bit. I think he's going to get back like maybe a couple games before the playoffs, if that. Or they might just wash it this year. But I don't know. The Nuggets are struggling. They can't seem to find an offense. And their defense with Jokic is just awful. He just can't do anything in the.
Yeah, he's pretty bad on D.
That's an understatement. He's really bad on team. Lucas, who are you taking?
I really hate this game because I just don't want to pick either of these teams. I really
This
don't.
is why I pick these games.
This is such a close one. Man, if Denver has any,
This is good listening, huh?
if Denver has any hopes for the playoffs, I guess they have to win this game for sure. So I'm going Denver.
All right. Jason.
I don't believe in them, but if they have any chance to make the playoffs, they need to start winning.
Fair. I think Denver is kind of deflated. I kind of think the wind is out of their sails at this point, and DC needs every scrappy win they can pick up to stay, on the top half of playoff seeding. I'm taking the Wizards, the much maligned on this podcast.
See, I don't
Wizards.
disagree with that either. I like that take as well. I hate picking either of these teams right now because they're both super streaky and bad.
I'm going to. God, negativity. The Nuggets are going to win this game. I'm feeling it. They're passing. Their offense is going to take down the Wizards. I just know it.
It's too much positivity for either of these teams. They don't deserve it.
You've been a Suns fan for like a little too long.
Right?
It's really starting to hurt your soul.
It's been a long time.
All right, we're going to go into the next game, which is Saturday night. Minnesota Timberwolves, my Timber Puppies, versus the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers are favored 61% at home. We all know that the Timberwolves are struggling. They slid from the 3rd seed to the 8th seed. They might stay in the 8th seed according to Lucas's hot takes. This playoff series is set. I'm going to make the first pick here. I'm feeling that the Timberwolves are going to take this one. Just Wiggins is going to show that he needs to be the number one guy. He's going to take it to him. I'm sorry, Jason, but 76ers are going to lose.
It's okay. If we have to lose, I would love to see it. If we have to. Again, just because, I know, my homies, my inner circle is going to text me, what the frig are you talking about? Why would you say these things? But if we have to, let it be to the Timber Puppies, who I'm a fan of, a casual fan. And let it be with Wiggins asserting himself and actually being, a star player. Just because once in a while, it's nice to see that, Andrew. Okay, Andrew? We're
talking
you should
to you.
start using your first name, Andrew. But
He learned his middle name.
Oh my gosh.
Middle name.
All right, that's coming. Next podcast, I'm going to give the full Andrew McCarthy Wiggins, whatever his middle name is. I'm taking the Sixers.
Wow.
I am.
I can't believe you're picking against Michael Jordan's son.
You said you were going to bring that up.
Yeah, I didn't forget.
You little
Just so
snake.
everyone knows, Jimmy Butler's dad is Michael Jordan.
You can Google it.
Confirmed.
And, yeah, it's 100%
I
confirmed
confirmed it.
with DNA evidence.
Nah.
No, but
Lucas?
there are side-by-side face shots that, whatever. You do the research. You do the math.
I think I'm gonna pick the Timberwolves. I'm just excited for this game because Embiid versus Towns is just gonna be a fun matchup because they both do the same things, but Embiid is slightly better on defense. Well, I guess a lot better than on defense, but I think Cat has an advantage on offense because he can run a little bit more. He can stretch the floor more. Embiid's struggling on the threes. It's gonna be a fun matchup.
Cat's offense is a little more dynamic.
I think so. He can do a lot more.
So we're going to go into Game 4. We're looking at the Portland Trailblazers versus the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Oh, jeez.
Back-to-backs with my fave teams. I like it.
I know, I don't try to do that, but just the way the games work out. This looked like a really fun game. We talked about both these teams earlier in the podcast. Trailblazers are doing outstanding. Oklahoma City is kind of, are they good? Is Corey Brewer actually making them a real team?
Did he fix everything that was wrong?
We'll have to see. So the Thunder are favored 64% because they're at home, which is always just a crapshoot.
I will take the Trailblazers because they're going to win.
Because they're going to win.
They are. I'm sorry, but you know what? This is going to be my book it pick of this entire fourth quarter. That's not even a thing we do, but now it is. This is my book it pick. If all of my other picks are wrong, this one's going to be right.
This is going to turn into Lucas's book it with Booker.
That's going to be great.
Book it with Booker. It's another loss for the Suns.
Trademarked.
I'm going to go Trailblazers too, just because, I don't know. I just think they're going to be so hot in the playoffs, and this is the perfect time to ever get hot in an NBA season, and the Thunder are really slumping.
Are really slumping? Weren't they just
They're
on
really
a
slumping.
They're
on a
Six game. They're slumping. They lost the
slumping.
game, but at the buzzer, they're almost 7-0.
They're just so frustrating to watch.
I know.
They're
Trust me, I know.
I'm taking the Thunder because it makes both of you look bad when they actually win this game. Because Westbrook's going to drop a 50 and 17 because I'm calling it.
Okay. Book it.
Book it.
Book it. 50, 17, and 17.
All right, we're going to go into the last game. It's the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Los Angeles Clippers. Clippers are fighting for that 8th seed somehow with trading their supermax player Blake Griffin earlier in the year. The Bucks are just, I don't know what they're doing. I think they're trying to play basketball, but sometimes they forget that they have one of the best players, and the rest of the team is just terrible.
Although they're kind of not. But I don't know.
I just don't know.
They're an enigma, man. They really are. There's sometimes where you watch that team and you're like, they could honestly compete with anyone in a 7-game series. And then you watch them the next game and you're like, oh my God, they're going to get swept in the first round.
Yeah.
They're going to get swept and they're losing to the Hawks by 40 or something.
Yeah.
It's not like that's ever happened, but it feels like it when they're down by 5.
Yeah, enthusiastically with no knowledge of that.
So
yeah, sure.
So to add a little bamboozle, the Clippers are favored 65% in this game, which I'm just going to go ahead and take the bullet and
make your pick.
I'm picking the Bucks.
I'm taking the Bucks as well, and it's really going to be for the same reason as I said with the Denver game. I agreed with Lucas's hot take that the current 1 through 8, not in terms of the order of seeding, but that the 1 through 8 teams in the West are who will be there at the end of the year. Those are going to be your playoff teams. And I think we're going to kind of start seeing that realization throughout the 9 and 10 seeds right now in the West. And I think there's just going to be a little demoralized, not fully into it. Yeah.
The Bucks have to figure out their struggles. The Clippers, they do feel just demoralized right now. I feel like they know their season's over. But the past 6 weeks they've won. They've beaten teams like the Bucks, the same caliber.
But they've lost 4 in a row.
They've lost 4 in a row. They lost their 4 in a row is brutal though. Minnesota, Portland, OKC, and Houston. Those are all teams arguably better.
That's a fair 4-game losing streak.
And
I accept it.
And none of them were that bad. I guess Minnesota was by 14, but Houston was by 5. They can stay in games. I'm going to pick Clippers.
Oh, okay.
'Cause I think they could beat Milwaukee, and I don't think Milwaukee has an identity yet.
They need to figure it out next year. They need to make some moves next year.
Are they kind of like OKC is in the sense that we've played almost an entire season and there's really no cohesion, no identity?
I guess the difference is they finally fired Jason Kidd, which should have happened last year.
A long time ago.
So I think next year we'll see a more defined.
Has Jason Kidd left that dark hotel room with the bottle in his hand?
Nope.
Okay, cool.
Nope. Him and Derek Fisher are somewhere.
With Matt Barnes' wife.
Yeah.
I'm glad we checked back in.
I got dark real fast.
All right. Thank you for listening to the Sip and Swish NBA podcast. We're done talking about Matt Barnes' wife, ex-wife. Make sure
terrible.
Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Sip and Swish, Facebook Sip and Swish NBA. Our podcast is wherever you find your podcast. We're going to be there. Make sure you leave us a review. Helps us out a ton. check out PlayDayDream.com. That was our interview today, third quarter. Fantastic website. It's going to be great next year with the NFL starting it off. I'm excited for it. Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you again for checking in, and have a great day.